I'm looking on the phone.
Let's go live. Let's do it. Okay, I think we're live. And so I'm just going to do a little hi, all you guys out there that have been waiting for an hour. But, like there's millions of people waiting out there. It's a sparrow, little sparrow.
Character-driven media and its owners and associates take no responsibility for the opinions or statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests. Statements or show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of this site or the radio station or the stream, and opinions between talk show hosts may conflict. This site does not endorse anything as the truth. That you will have to judge for yourself. But we try to speak the truth on the owner's behalf and reserve the right to question the supposed truth. In this time of misinformation, government-controlled media, and government corruption, it is sometimes hard to get to the truth, but we must try. It's not our intention to libel, discriminate, make hate, or annoy anyone. We believe that it is our constitutional First Amendment right of free speech to voice our opinions and our duty to the Constitution and the country to expose the truth. This site takes no responsibility for the opinions of others in the postings of comments in chat rooms or forum posts.
Well, we don't take much responsibility for anything except for being here and getting the show on the road. We'll do it despite the obstacles. We've got Alison, she's forged her way through mountain passes and across deserts to be here, and now we have her hopefully in real time. Are you there?
I'm there.
Woohoo!
Thanks, Joani, for having me. Yeah, I'm glad I finally made it. I've survived the Vancouver SkyTrain system.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here, and that's a whole other story right unto itself. The Vancouver SkyTrain system, for anybody that does not live in this particular area, not that you necessarily do either. We're not disclosing any areas, but if you were to take the SkyTrain, it would be a hassle, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, we are, if nothing but well prepared. This is our inaugural show. We have done a couple of shows where we've dabbled in some investigation, and a dabble we will again. But I shouldn't make light of it, because we are actually going to be talking about a pretty serious subject, and we want to, get these things out in a timely fashion. So we've decided we're going to do the show come hell or high water. Now, Alison, you gave me the idea for this show from one of our viewers who is actually helping us with some of the research with the show. And she was good enough to give me some of the links, and then I went and found some links myself. But for those that don't understand necessarily what we're doing here at midnight, Pacific time. Now, you who are overseas and just getting up in the morning, welcome, because this is going to start your day. I tell you, you're going to have an excellent day. Once you've seen this, the rest of the day will go downhill, I know, because we're going to be showing you how to go about doing an investigation, and I am using a presentation that I kind of put together just based on the very little that I knew about this case. And so Alison's going to help walk me through this. Now, I've put together the information. She has not looked at it. So I think this is kind of an interesting exercise in investigation, because basically we don't know much about the situation overall with this woman, Mila de Mier. I'm hoping I am pronouncing that properly. I wanted to give her the credit that is due to her, because the mainstream media has really overlooked this woman and her demise, which apparently took place about a week ago today, from what I can figure out. So now that I've dominated, I'm going to let Alison talk a little bit about what she knows about this case.
Well, exactly. That's the problem, is the mainstream media has basically said nothing about this woman. It kind of got glossed over. And there's lots of these types of stories that we've seen a pattern where some occurrences happen, or events happen, or somebody is found, a body's found, all sorts of things happen, and not covered in the news. Independent journalists are the ones that are picking up these stories. So, and sometimes those stories don't get the credit that they're due. And this is one in particular, this Mila de Mier, or de Mier, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce her name because I haven't heard anybody say it. I wanted to know a little bit more about her. We all know who Seth Rich is now, but who is this woman? She died for a cause as well. And what was it that she was investigating that somebody would kill her over? Like, if somebody's found dead, there should be an investigation into that person's death. And in a lot of cases, it's just being swept under the rug. So, yeah, let's take a look and see what you came up with today.
Okay. Well, I laid it out in such a way that I thought maybe people could use this as a bit of a template when they're looking into their own investigations. What you want to do is start with what you don't know and go to what you do know. And so this is a perfect opportunity for us to go through that process, because I have to say we have not, you know, it's not been a collaborative thing today because of the circumstances. And this is really guerrilla journalism, because we've been helping each other. You know, initially Alison got me going on this topic, and I decided that I would, because she had other things to do, I would follow through. Meanwhile, I had my radio show earlier today and other things going on as well. I had another interview. So it's been a kind of crazy day for both of us. I did notice a spelling error, and I'm not even going to apologize, because it's just the way it goes. You'll get the hang of it. So what I found was that it was really interesting to see how little was printed about Mila's time of death. Now, it could be Mila. Again, this is really telling, because we don't even know how to pronounce her name, because she has had so little coverage that, you know, we haven't heard the pronunciation. But anyway, I'm going to call her Mila. And, you know, we don't even know her, well, we didn't know her time of death. I had to look into it. That was one of the things that I noticed right away, because they would say, well, last Tuesday, or, you know, I had to do some investigating to figure that out. There were some assumptions made in the article, which, by the way, I think what I'm going to do, rather than having it in the show notes, I'm going to put it over on Character Driven. I'm going to put this information over there in case you want the actual links we're referring to here. And so some of the dates were used, there was assumptions made in the article, and though some dates were used, the most vital date, when she was found in the pool, was referred to by the day of the week rather than the actual date, which made it difficult for me to figure it out. I think we can be pretty confident that it was April 9th based on the information provided. Yes, I do know there's a spelling error. I'm just going to say, I say that as defensively as humanly possible. So what I was able to figure out is that there's an article, Healing Oracle has an article, and you'll notice that a lot of these are sort of health-related articles, or activist or health-related, because what we're learning is that this was a woman who is quite involved in alternative activism in alternative subjects. So I'm starting again from what we don't know, because, you know, this is the way we build on the story, because I really don't know anything about her, and I could tell you who she is, but I'm, you know, starting with this so we can get a little bit of a sense of what happened. April 12, 2018, there's an article date, was the article date of Healing Oracle. April 12th was the article date of the activist post, which I think is also really interesting, because from what I've derived, her body was found on April 9th, which I believe, again, was last Tuesday. They say Tuesday, and I kind of cobbled it together, and her body was discovered in a pool. So she had died. Now, I'm just going to quickly whip over here. So this is where I got the details about the date of death, and this kind of gives you an idea of how sometimes people they leave out some of the vital details because there's this thing called assumptions, and because we know what's going on, we sometimes forget to let other people know. So this is from the article from the activist post, I believe, speaking of leaving things out, but I do have the links, and I was going to put them in the description, but we didn't have our meeting ahead of time, and so we're just kind of winging it. So again, I put using the date of the article and the info in one of the paragraphs. It's pretty clear, another typo, that the date of death is April 9th. But what I wanted to show you for the sake of this investigative process is that we've got information here. Napoli's, which is her friend, called her on Thursday, April 5th. So I used that as a guideline to announce her intention, But you see here, it says the two headed to Washington on Sunday, arrived on Monday, and planned to deliver their petition to the EPA. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I'm first of all trying to figure out the time of death before we get into the details about, it's forensics. You see a body, you want to know when they died, you want to figure out some of the timeline. Right. So plan to deliver their petition on Tuesday morning. So you see how they keep saying Thursday and Tuesday? For me, I would try to set a timeline in a little bit better way, so that...
Right, because you don't understand, like, did she deliver the petition? Have they delivered what? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I found it quite confusing.
It is a bit confusing, and I'm not here to pick apart somebody else's reporting, because heaven knows I'm happy that they reported it all. But you start to notice that when you're trying to do an investigation based on somebody else's information. So that's right. The point of this. Is not to criticize, is to say you sometimes have to dig a little bit deeper to figure this out. So around 8:45 a.m. Tuesday morning. So So basically this woman she went for a quick swim in the hotel's rooftop pool before heading to the EPA. So they were coming to Washington specifically to deliver a petition, which, by the way, has a lot of signatures. I did not put that up on the screen, but
200,000. Yeah, it's 200,000 signatures.
Right. And I'm wondering if it's grown since that time. I mean, I wonder what it was when she actually died. But right. I couldn't find that out. Yeah. So that was the last time that Napoli's saw de Mier alive. So I'm seeing that Napoli's is a friend of hers and knows quite a bit about this. So I'm getting some clues here as to various directions I can go. Anyway, accidental drowning, and yet she was going to go swim with the dolphins in June. So this is a woman that knows how to swim. And yet she drowned mysteriously. But, again, we don't want to draw any conclusions, but we can just note that. Now we're going to go back here. And I'm going to go back. Oops. Go back one. All right. So, again, we go back to our summary. Again, I've got the date here up at the top because I want people to know that the date that I was doing this was April 16th, 2017, so that things could change. We're getting things off the internet, so they could change. Now, I want to go over here to her profile, what I found out about Mila. So I said, Alison told me about Mila, and I started looking into her story today. I didn't know her full name before starting to do research. Okay, so I started off not knowing her full name. I think we talked about it in chat, and you were at work, so I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to do a search. So here's my search term: mosquito activist dies. Okay, that's all I had. I thought that was the best way to find out about Mila. So, and actually I'll show you the Oops, sorry, getting confused. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking, but we can talk about this after,
No,
and we can go back.
No, it's good. It's a beautiful process you're leading us through. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you. Okay, well, we'll keep going then. All right, so I did a brief search, and what I noticed first was that she had a LinkedIn profile, so that was a good place to start. And I started learning more about her and her work as a realtor and the associations with other professionals. So that's a good way. I think Alison's talked about this before. Whenever you can find a LinkedIn reference, that's written by the person themselves. This is what they want the world to know about them. It's not a Wikipedia entry or something that somebody said about them. Can we agree on that? Or what do you have to say about that, Alison, about LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. It's how they choose to represent themselves. Usually people will beef up their LinkedIn profile when they're looking for a job, or if they're looking for new contracts, or trying to make a more professional online networking situation. I use LinkedIn for a lot of different professional, for networking, for looking for crew, for looking for finance, for me in all different kind of areas, for research. So that's where you can tell a lot about a person and how active they are in business, and who are their connections with. There's lots of hints and lots of clues you can get. Who are they connected to? Who has given them recommendations? Who have they recommended?
Yeah, it's a wealth of information. And literally, that was the first place I went. It wasn't that I was trying a strategy of any kind. It was that she had very little online that I could find. But I did find her LinkedIn. And the other thing to do is to know her marital status if possible, because it's not just being snoopy. It's really important to know if there are any other people involved in her life that might have ill will toward her, for instance. That's just an example. I'm not suggesting anything about her death, but again, it gets our mind off of the idea that somebody wanted her dead and they killed her in her pool, and it might have been Monsanto or whatever these things are. This is why I'm starting with what we don't know, because I could have started with the article and given you all the information. And what happens is that it kind of clutters our mind up and tends to filter things through that lens, if you know what I mean. How do you feel about that, Alison?
Well, you're basically taking somebody else's interpretation of information.
Right.
Because whoever wrote the article looked at a piece of information, and then they convey that information in a certain way. So they put their style onto it, so to speak. And then when you read it, you read a different way. So always something gets lost in that process. But if you can go to, like you said, what are the facts? What are the absolutes here? Was she married? Yes or no? Does she have children? Yes or no? Was she working? Yes or no? These are things that are provable and evident, like on LinkedIn. What was her previous job? Who did she work for? Things like that. Those are things that like what you're saying, those are absolutes. The rest of the things you're getting is information that may have been misinterpreted, or even sometimes disinformation.
Yeah, so I think marital status would be good. I wasn't able to find that from LinkedIn, but we're digging in. So again, I'm using this very same screenshot that I took from that article on the activist post, and I'm using it for a different purpose. This very short little bit has so much information in it if you start looking at it that way, because I saw it as the most important part of the article from the point of view of doing research, because there wasn't enough there for me to go on, and I wanted to find out more about this woman. So I decided that I would use this again. It's the same one that we were talking about earlier for a different purpose. But right. So these are the two. It's not full paragraphs, but they're about 2 paragraphs. So there's some great leads, and if you start sleuthing, you can see Napoli's. It comes into this. Okay. Here's some good nouns or things that stick out. The EPA. There's something about the EPA. Right. Napoli's. There's her name, de Mier. I didn't know, initially, and I found that out having done this search. And then I found out that there is a question of whether she accidentally drowned. And so these are all kind of interesting clues, because I can probably find out more about her through this Nepalese person. So if I was going to do a real investigative report, I would want to get in touch with people like that. And Nepalese knows her well enough to know about her swimming skills. And in fact, if you read the beginning of this, it says they actually went together to this event. They were going to present the petition together. That's all I know about her. Maybe they just met, and they were driving there together. But she did know that she wasn't a weak swimmer, and that she had swum with whale sharks in the past, which is, you won't find me doing that. So she's adventurous. I'm going to say we don't have to make too many assumptions when we look at that that was her idea of fun. Go swim with the sharks. There's a book by that name.
And in the second paragraph, what was really interesting to me was the creator.
Mm-hmm.
I just lost the screen.
Yeah,
and the Oxitec, the company Oxitec, Oxiter. Yeah, Oxiter, and I would look at the connections in Houston.
Well, you're at a disadvantage. There's a couple of technical difficulties here, and Alison isn't using the computer. So are you able to see what you were looking at, or what you want to share?
Yeah, see this says the mosquitoes to be released in Houston are created by Oxitex,
right?
British biotech. For me, I always go towards the technical information, because that's I'm the technical, scientific sort of person. So I would say, okay, who's the parent company over Oxitec? Who are the main players in that company? Are they some of the regular players because there's a pattern of players that show up. Are they some of the same players? Who are these companies? British biotech company responsible for the mosquitoes. Mm-hmm. And because I look at like you said, this is the people that are in the perimeter. Who's the company that she's been fighting against? She's been fighting against that company.
Yeah, the same mosquitoes that.
Because they're the ones that created the mosquito.
Mm-hmm.
And who's the company that financed who's the company that financed that little exercise?
And notice too that we don't know much about the mosquitoes at this point. I didn't want to know a lot about that because, again, I don't want to, get my mind all muddled up with a bunch of information. So I wanted to first go into her because she's the one who turned up drowned. It's
right.
It's important to me. The way that I go about doing things is to not get too much information right off the top. Like if we were having a meeting together, it would be confusing if we started in on both those topics. We would have to decide which to tackle it, first and then go on to the next thing, working as a team. Okay, let's go back here. And so I got quite a bit out of that. Let me just go up here. So here's a really interesting one. I found this picture of her. I can now determine that she is definitely an activist because there she is, and it's been determined to be her. This is from the article. I can't 100% say this is her, but they say it's her. And it looks like something that she would be doing because she's talking about mosquitoes, the release of...
Right.
So, we can be pretty sure this is her. But again, it's really important not to make assumptions. But if that is her and that information is true, she's an activist. There's evidence to substantiate the fact that Mila has been involved in activism. It's a very simple statement, but, sometimes we take for granted that somebody says she was an activist. How do we know? she was an activist. That could be just someone's opinion. What is an activist? So when I look at that picture, because I'm quite visual, I see a person who is out on the streets. I see a swanky car in behind. I don't think it's hers. It may or may not be, but she's in an area where there are cars like that. So I'm assuming that she has a lot of guts to be out there talking to people who might be making decisions, and maybe even her neighbors. I don't know. But I was looking at that image for quite a while. Females will I want to be able to read the rest of that. I can't read.
I think it's because the mosquitoes, it's about the mosquitoes. The females will breed. They're saying that they're trying to make males that won't breed with the females.
Right. Be cool to see that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's part of the mosquito thing. But that's right what you're saying about the way she's dressed too. She's wearing something that's specifically for protesting in. There's different types of protesters. There's protesters that carry signs and come in a costume. And she's got special gear on. She's got a little sign right on her clothes. She's a professional protester.
She's unafraid. She's not Antifa.
But she's also got the paraphernalia. Some people just show up and they're just a body standing there. But they don't want to hold a sign, and they don't want to wear the sticker. They don't want to wear the red shirt or whatever. They're just standing there. They're not fully committed. She's fully committed. She's wearing a little sign. She's got things pinned on her chest and on her apron or whatever, and holding a sign.
Right.
So yeah, if that's her, she's definitely an activist.
Right. It's a good picture. It tells, I look at pictures carefully because there's so much to see that you might miss right away. And I even look at the band around her arm. Some people wear bands to say that they are supporting something, agree or disagree with that practice. I just feel like she's a pretty committed person, which tells you a little bit about her personality and why she might tick people off. I'm just saying. Not everybody. Now, here's an interesting picture. It's a very tiny one, but I found this on her, the site that I'm going to talk about in a bit, but I'm just looking at the pictures right now because here's another one where we can just jump in and say, oh, those must be her kids. Are these her kids? If you look at the site, you'll see this photo, but she hasn't filled out the profile. Like literally on the site, it says profile not filled out. You need to fill it out. But she hasn't filled it out. She hasn't filled out the profile, so we have no evidence about her relationship to these boys. Resist the urge to jump to conclusions. It's also a really tiny image, so hard to, another typo, get a lot of detail, right? So we see her there. We can see that people are looking happy, and there's one guy that's looking kind of goofy, like teenagers will. But we don't know. She could be visiting her nephews. These could be kids that she works with. Could be an award ceremony, because you see how things are cut off. She could be holding something in her hand there. Anything could be happening. It's so cropped. It's so tightly cropped that we don't really know the context of this picture. So what do you think, Alison?
Yeah, I agree. It could be anything. It could be a family. It could be like 42 people in the picture. You don't. It could be anything like that. Yeah. So,
well, yes.
You can't.
It's especially because it's so cropped. It's unusual when you have, most people are taking pictures with their cameras or something, and the resolution is quite good. But I tried to enlarge this, and it really got grainy. So it does feel like that. You're right, that it could be part of a bigger picture. So it's,
right.
But it's a clue, and she looks like she's pretty happy in that picture. I don't think we have to make too many assumptions. She's happy to be there. And she always seems to have these lovely little dresses on. She wears dresses a lot. And so, yeah, I'm just noticing. Oops. Oh, I just went. Okay, let's go back to that. All right, so I had I call that a resource because that's just something to keep in mind. It's not really important to overall to this, but I think we went to search, didn't we? I think we looked at search. Yeah.
Yeah, that was right. The way.
Sorry. Okay, we'll go right back to the beginning here. So this is what I like about this format, because we can keep going back and forth, and we can actually add things too, not necessarily to this presentation, but you know, this is the kind of things, as you can see, there's a pen there, and I do love my fountain pen, so that's what I would use. And let's just go to events. Okay, so what led to this situation? That's very Spartan, isn't it? I don't know much about the events. Yeah. I don't know anything about the events. What led to this situation? So, again, I don't have, at this point, I don't have a lot. So I've just got some placeholders here, you know, to remind me that I need to look at some of the past events that might have led up to this. So these pictures mean nothing because I don't really know anything about her. So they could be anybody. She could be anybody. But it's a good thing to keep in mind to see if you can find some of the past events and see what's led up to this. But this is really important to me. I think timelines are really important, and this is just a fake timeline. This is when I just say it's a great investigative tool, because if you can come up with a timeline, it'll help sort of solidify things in your mind, or help you to know which way to go. So I put, for example, she started a realty company in 2015. Let's just say that happened. And she got divorced in 2016. If we can find some of these markers, 2017 she gets involved in activism, and then 2018 she's asked to present a petition to the EPA. So, you know what I mean? It's this isn't real, but it was just something that I thought I would fill in once I got the information that I needed so that I could get a sense of the chronology. Do you use timelines?
Yeah, because I think that it's important. Or I write the notes down and then I draw arrows up and down. Like, cause I scribble on pieces of paper in obscene ways, and then I just join everything with arrows around. Right. So like this came before this, and that came there, right? Mm-hmm. And I do join things together that way, because it's important to know what happened first. I want to know what she did before. Who did she speak to before? Did she have a history of dispute with a particular company or a particular person? You know, if something's happened to her in a strange city, has she been to that city before? Has she stayed at that hotel before? Like, there's just all kinds of different ways of looking at it. But yeah, you have to know what happened first, what happened second. Did they check out of the hotel? When did they check in the hotel?
Right.
Was she, what did the girl do while she was in the pool? The other girl, was she there?
That's right. And actually, this could even be April whatever we do know about. So we could, instead of 2015, we could put April the 5th, because we do know about that. That was when they made plans to travel. So you can go with what you do know and make this timeline just maybe 4 days instead of 4 years. But just that idea of and there's lots of room there to add things, or your doodles or whatever, but something very simple like that. With a piece of paper, you draw a line across, a few vertical lines, and just get yourself going on brainstorming a little bit. And so those are a couple of things that I thought might be helpful just in terms of keeping track of things. Now, I think, did I go to articles? I'm sorry. Okay. So,
no, I don't think so, no.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm going to go back and look. I think it might have been in brief. I'm so sorry. But I don't have my notes with me. I was thinking we were going to be collaborating. But so here's the really brief. This is what we know. This is what I know. An activist dies mysteriously. And here are a few of the questions that I had. Was there any mainstream media coverage of the event? was there any coverage by alt or mainstream re the petition? Because I didn't hear anything about the petition, yet apparently 200,000 people did. So there's a lot of people out there that know about that petition and what was going on there. And presumably they would know about her because she was asked to present it to the EPA. So that they had to have a certain amount of confidence in her to take a petition with 200,000 names on it and do the presentation. Is that making an assumption?
Yeah, because they were coming from Houston or something. They weren't in the neighborhood just dropping it off. They had come in from somewhere.
Mm-hmm. It was a big deal. They were staying at a hotel. Who was funding this? Was it an organization that actually sent them there to represent? Like, they had to be representatives of some sort, because you're trusting people with this document. You can't just say, well, I think I'm just going to go and present this now that we've got a bunch of names on it.
Yeah.
So
there's a procedure.
Mm-hmm. And yet, if it wasn't covered, why not? Because that's a pretty substantial number of people. You would think that some media outlet. Mm-hmm.
As far as I recall, you have to have minimum 150,000 names in order to qualify to present to Congress. So 200,000 is above that. But I think you can't even bother them for less than 150. It has to be 150,000.
Yeah, so it seems like there should be some story somewhere, doesn't there? Doesn't it?
I think what it is, I think things like this happen all the time. We just don't hear about them, and that's what's unfortunate. And that was the point that I was trying to make is that the mainstream media is hyping up, and it has the same story that they drag out for days and days and days and days and days. Take the same story and they beat it to death, and they just drill it into people. Meanwhile, there's all kinds of stuff that gets zero coverage. Well, these are the kind of stories that don't get covered. They don't want people to know that these things are happening. They don't want people to know that some woman that signed a petition that was collecting signatures for mosquitos showed up dead in a swimming pool in Washington, D.C. They don't want people to know that kind of stuff, so they're not going to put it on the mainstream news.
Well, you're getting ahead of me. I'm trying to just not get too emotional about it, because I'm just pretending I don't know any of that stuff. But right. what I'm trying to get to understand in my own head is all of the stuff you mentioned, how it doesn't really make sense, because you've got a pretty big news story here for all the reasons that you just mentioned. So that's all true. Why isn't anybody covering it? That's interesting to me. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there is something there, but I haven't found it yet. So was there any coverage by the mainstream media re the protest or the event at all? Because apparently there was some sort of event being held there as well. So, and there were protests and that sort of thing. So I'm just curious. I want to find out more, because maybe I missed that. Maybe I need to find out. I need to go down that track and assume that I might have missed something. So
yeah, I sometimes I think it's really strange. I'll be at a protest and there'll be like a couple 100,000 people there, but it won't be on the news. It won't be,
Yeah.
Well, nothing. You don't hear anything about it. It's a pretty big event. People walk, for like 10 blocks. You can't see the end of the line of people, but you don't hear anything about it.
Yeah. And by the same token, you'll hear something about, the Parkland school students and the people who shall not be named. But, that's covered backward and forward. So you just start to notice the discrepancies between we're talking about the same area, because this is in the Florida Keys. So this is Florida, same area as that other news story that got so much coverage in that very same district.
Yeah. Well, even on all the news, there's always the stories that are the distraction stories, because they want to fill the airspace up with stories that aren't really important.
Right.
I'm getting ahead of us again. Sorry.
Well, no, it's just important to notice things, I think. If you're going to be a researcher, we're not talking about being a newscaster or anything. We're just talking about when you want to talk to somebody about this information, okay, let's just pretend that, like Alison, you run into somebody when you're taking the garbage out. I can't remember what you were doing, but you ran into somebody and you had facts. You know, you had information. You weren't going out there and going, Monsanto killed another activist. You know, it's well, this is just interesting. You know, you would think there'd be more coverage. You know, these are things that you can say to people that it's non-confrontational, and it shows you've done your homework because you have, and you actually care. And it kind of either will draw people in to the discussion, or at least it'll get them thinking. Yeah, why don't we see that? That is true. That's not a conspiracy theory.
Well, this is my point. This is a woman who's dead, who was doing something that I consider to be a very important thing in the world. She was speaking out against something that could be highly, highly dangerous for all of us. They're going to release a genetically modified mosquito that we don't know anything about the safety of this product, or if it's going to be, who knows what could happen. And enough people felt strongly about it to sign, 200,000 people thought it was important enough to sign a petition about. So, but I want her to have the credit that she's deserved. She was trying to accomplish something, and I think it's important that we pick up the flag and continue forward into battle with it. And if people don't know about it, then they can't do that.
Well, that's exactly why we're highlighting her, because I'm really hoping that people will use some of these techniques. Now, maybe Alison and I can't dig into every single story, but wouldn't it be great if you shared this video with other people who might have the time or resources or be living in that area? Or, it's amazing. We've got people who are from Houston and people who are from the Florida Keys where this is happening, and from Washington. And, can you imagine if we just took all of that information and we put it all together and we solved this thing? We started to bring it forward and said, you tried to suppress this and we're going to bring it forward. Do we have the guts to do it, for one thing? Anyway, these are some things that people can look at. And again, doing it in a rational way really helps to lend credence to the message, so that we can really speak to other people and say, this is what's happening. Even if we learn about GMO mosquitoes, which I knew nothing about and still don't know much about, I may want to do more research, but maybe somebody else can do some research and help me, because I can't do all of this myself. So I was looking at alternative news sites and their coverage of the event and Mila's death. That's good. That's a good way to go. You want to find out some background information on GMOs in general, because maybe there's new things that we haven't learned. Don't assume that you know everything about GMOs or whatever this topic is. Kind of take that attitude that there's a lot to learn. And now in particular, so we're digging down a little bit deeper, but what about background information on Monsanto's plans, specifically about these GM mosquitoes? So do you see how we go from a very general thing right down to the specific, so that we have a good basis for understanding? Does that make sense?
What was Monsanto specifically mentioned in the petition?
It was mentioned in an article. That's a good question, because even there I'm making an assumption that people have read that. But there was one of the articles. I'm open to being corrected, because I could have gotten that wrong. Absolutely. So we do know that it was a British company that was working on this, but apparently Monsanto had their sticky fingers into it. I'm sorry. Yeah. Is my bias showing? Okay, so again, what I like about this is you can see that we don't know very much, but what we do know is pretty important. An activist dies mysteriously. I chose those 3 words because I think that they hold a lot of weight. When we're doing our slug line or our reason for pursuing this, it's good to have a really specific reason. And all of those words are important to me because they tell the story. Okay? Now, I think, I'm really sorry because actually, I think we'll go there, yeah. Okay. This is a good picture because we're digging deeper. And this is called getting your hands dirty. This is the part where people, they never get used to it if they have an ounce of empathy. You know, it's very hard to do this part because you need to dig deeper into the facts around those that are mentioned in the articles. So we were talking a little bit about her friend who survived. And I noticed in one of the articles that it had a reference to the friend and an EMT first responder. We've got the hotel staff, and we have fellow activists. So those are all people that can be a wealth of information to answer some of the questions that we were talking about earlier. But it's a little bit more dangerous to do a one-on-one with people or to get yourself really into the fray at this point, because it's a lot easier to sit back and just do a web search. So how far are you willing to go to find out what happened to this woman? You know.
Right. I just pulled up the petition because I wanted to know who's named in the petition.
Okay.
And what's interesting is there's a lot of the text about it, but I can't see what the actual petition itself says.
Frustrating.
It's on change.com.
Right. That was one of, let me just see if I,
It's on change.com. It's a whole big spiel about all kinds of stuff. There's lots of information there, but I want to read the actual petition.
Okay, while you're doing that, I'm just going to.
Okay, so that is the petition. It's a long, it's a lot of text. So it's on change.com.
We'll go and take a look at that once I've got this screen down, because I don't want to muck things up too much more than they already are. I'm already having. It doesn't actually say. As far I skimmed through it, I didn't see the word Monsanto anywhere. Okay.
It's a company. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a good question.
Yeah, I stand to be corrected, and I shouldn't have put Monsanto in there. It's just without some sort of citation, and of course this was something we were going to go over before we did the show.
Yeah,
so,
no. This is all on the fly. So none of this work has been verified or validated. That's exactly what we need to do. This is perfect because we're showing the process how it works.
This is our meeting.
You start digging the stuff up, and then you see where do you go from there.
This is what we would be doing in a production meeting, only I would be adding, subtracting, changing. So this was me doing it, ad hoc, and I think it's important to have people check in with your work so that you can have those questions that you didn't really think about yourself. Because I literally did this between a couple of interviews, and lots of things are missing here. These are just top of the mind, what I thought about. So the second level, the first level is getting your hands dirty, and they used to call that ambulance chasing, but I hate that turn of phrase. It should be a really positive thing where you're willing to actually make the phone call, or do an interview, do a Skype interview, do something where you can get some metadata, whatever you want to call it, and find out as much as you can, even if it's, the hotel person says, yeah, I saw her up there, and she passed through and she had breakfast here. That's all interesting stuff. It's really interesting stuff. And clearly nobody else is finding that out, so why don't we? Anyway, so go to your online resources. They're less reliable than the one-on-one interviews that we were just talking about, but they're helpful if you want to, if you run out of leads or if you need more context. So isn't it amazing that we can just, find out about the hotel itself? We can find out about, we can find out everything on the internet. It used to be that this would be very, very difficult stuff to find way back in the day. So that's your second line of inquiry, I think. And then, so we're talking about digging deeper yet again. And then this is the third line for me, because once you've got that nice foundation and that basis, you have some bright ideas, your puzzle pieces, your rabbit holes, your intuition and hunches. And this is the important part. Rightly placed and based on a good foundation of facts, these are good guides. You can start to really rely on your experience and your intuition and that sort of thing. And that'll really help you to put the thing together. You'll get pretty inspired, I think, once you've got a good foundation. That's how I work anyway.
Yeah, and I think is really cool too is that this is what excites me about the whole citizen-based journalism. When you have people working together that have different ideas, and somebody's saying something in a chat, well, what about this, or you should talk to this person, or you should go there. I've watched so many people giving information underneath videos when somebody posts a video on a particular subject, and all of a sudden, boom, the comment section explodes with ideas. So the collaborative process, like this foundation, is great because it sets the sort of the scene for jumping into that collaborative pool.
Mm-hmm.
Bad planning on this particular night.
Right. And, we're not just doing this as an exercise, at least I'm not. I really do want to get to the bottom of this, and I would love to hear from people and find out more about what they're thinking. Now, oh gosh, what do I have in depth? I probably did something weird. Oh, look it. We have a circle of people. They're talking. They're doing exercises. I don't know what I was thinking.
That's the collaborative part. No, because whenever everybody goes off and they dig in a different direction, we all do that. You think about a treasure hunt. Everybody runs off in a different direction. You start looking for stuff. And we all find something. And when we bring it back, all those pieces all add up together, and they tell a story. And some people are really good at connecting all the dots. George Webb, for example, is good at connecting all the dots. Mm-hmm. Other people bring him information, and he sits there and he figures out how it all works together. So, this is the point this is one of the reasons that I love creating this program online, on-air investigations. We're actually showing the process, how you can take information, you can search for information, and we can start, bringing justice to some people. Like, this woman deserves to have her truth be told.
Yep. This is one of the websites. We do have the links, and so I'm going to actually show the sites so that if you want to, you can take a screenshot, but certainly you have something to go with now. This is just touching the surface of the investigation, but this is where I got that picture from. So it's now that we see it and we put it in context, we start to see that it was important enough for her to put that picture onto realtor.com. So she's a realtor. She was with Southernmost Realty. And we see what kind of places she was selling. I mean, she looked like she was pretty well established. And she was in Key West, so of course that's a pretty nice area as well. And
she probably put her picture with these kids, whether they're her kids or somebody else's kids, because her business works on selling homes for families. Mm-hmm. She's putting a family picture because she's trying to collect a family clientele. It's probably her specialty is family homes, I imagine.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we've got down here
her price range. Those are family homes. Yeah.
Well, and look where she's selling. When I looked at her protesting, I thought that she might be from a little bit of a Tony area. I find this interesting because look how close she is to Boca Chica Key Naval Air Station. So she's selling a lot of stuff to the military. So you can imagine how this whole thing of GMOs would maybe clash a little bit with some of the people who are living in the area. I'd like to know more about Boca Chica Key Naval Air Station. in Key West. So if anybody's in that area, I'd sure like to know more, because I'm sure there's somebody that could just go, oh yeah, I live down the road. I live on Old State Road 4A, and I know all about it. And interesting, the range of pricing here, because I'm assuming that this, again, I want you to know that, but the 136K house over here, maybe it has something to do with the being near the base. And look at the range here. It's quite interesting.
Maybe that's in the hurricane zone.
Gosh.
It could be just, it's like there's the nice houses, and then there's the houses for the people that take care of the nice houses.
Yeah. It's an interesting site for what you could derive from this, because it tells you a lot about where she lives and the people that she's working with. She has some dates there of different things that she's sold. It says worked with buyer, which was interesting. So, I see. So she didn't have the listing, probably. She just helped sell. Yeah. So she worked with the seller. So go ahead.
Some of the lower price ones might just be property without houses. Those might just be pieces of land too.
Well, except it says 3-bedroom and 1 bath, so that's a weird.
Oh, I can't read that. Sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
I just see the numbers.
That's a nice piece of land right there. It's got 3 bedrooms on it. So you basically outside, got your bedrooms outside. Anyway, there's so many things that you could look at. It has her phone number there. Well, maybe it's not her phone number, but it's certainly a contact number. There's so many things you can see. It looks like a really simple page in a lot of ways, because she hasn't filled out the information up at the top. I noticed it said, but it has her list. Yeah, she hasn't provided a bio yet. So what I'm learning is that it seems like she was working toward becoming a realtor. It seems like she was at the beginning of her career, just based on this, how many properties she'd sold and how many she has listed here, that sort of thing. So that is a good page. I found it quite helpful. What do I have here? Oh, the same page. That's not helpful at all. Alrighty, here we go. This is the rest of the story from that, the one that I cited, where we just have the paragraph. I wanted to hone in on the paragraph, because sometimes we can get so caught up on the graphics and all the rest of it that we don't necessarily see all the details first. So that's my rationale. Does that work for you, Alison?
Yeah, I usually don't pay attention to the picture, because quite often the picture is misleading. It doesn't really have anything to do with it, because they just pick a stock picture, or they put something that a lot of times it has nothing to do with the story.
This one is not bad, because from what I've seen, it is that area, and so now we see what we're dealing with. And it looks like she lives in the Florida Keys, and that would be the area that they were going to be spraying. So this is very personal for her. We'll get rid of the ads, people putting things in ears. And this is where I found out about the 200,000 signatures to the EPA. So there's little bits and pieces in this article. Just going to see if... Oh, and this was the bit that she stayed at the Cambria Hotel and Suites in Washington. So there's a good tip if you ever wanted to... If anybody's in Washington and they have a chance to go and take a look and see if anybody was on duty that day, as far as the staff, you can't bug the staff, but you could certainly snoop around. And so here's where it says the medical crews said they attempted to treat the victim, but later pronounced her dead. So there's some good information. This is for the dirty hands part, if anybody's interested in actually getting their hands dirty. These are
fire department.
Yeah.
The fire department, the paramedics from the fire department are usually the first responders.
Right. Now, I didn't go any deeper because I already had enough, but you can see right here, now we're starting to get links to her Facebook page. So this is a good one for anybody that might want to look a little bit deeper. I'm not on Facebook a lot. But here we go. Do you notice that she has those 3 boys with her? Again, she doesn't have a husband, I don't think. I'm just making an assumption there, but that's an interesting fact when you find somebody when they turn up dead.
Well, let's hope they have a father and she's a two.
Well, yeah, but again, that's the emotional side. I'm trying to keep that out. But then what I'm noticing here is it seems like another person, because we had 2 younger boys. Maybe the picture was taken a while ago, but this is now the Air Force base, I'm thinking. So maybe there is an Air Force connection there. Anyway, you can definitely see that there's a lot to... Oh, she's proud of her boys. Mila was a great mom. She was so proud of her children, such a caring mom. Okay, so you can really dig in at this point. I think I'm just going to go off there because that's my personal page and I don't really want to have it all over the place. So we have such a great audience, though. They're just looking at the relevant stuff. Anyway, go ahead and take a look at this. She's very strident. The time is now. Please sign and share. We're not guinea pigs. So you can get a sense of her just her strident attitude towards this.
Yeah.
Time to set standards when it comes to biotechnology. She's using words that are appropriate. So she definitely knows how to get her point across, and she may have been asked to go and do this, be a representative. Okay, so and now we come to...
If she's a realtor, then she's good at talking to people. So yeah, it's sales too.
Well, here's a tip too. Napoli's explained that she and de Mier had worked on the GE mosquito issue for years and had previously made trips to the Food and Drug Administration in an attempt to express their concerns. So they're not new to this game. So this Napoli's, now we're finding, seems like they're good friends. And so anyway, there's a lot of information here. And this is the name Oxitec. Again, this is that screenshot that I did.
It's interesting that says the company claims that trials in Brazil, Panama, and Cayman Islands. Well, I got sick from mosquitoes in Brazil.
So
that's where I got dengue fever.
From what you understand, what is the purpose of this GMO mosquito?
Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make a mosquito that won't breed, right? So they're genetically modifying the mosquitoes to make them sterile, sort of, so that they won't keep reproducing.
So so
I guess they're looking at modifying them in a couple of different ways, but the one that they're claiming is going to be the most effective, the one I imagine that this group is all about, is they're not supposed to reproduce.
Right. Well, we come to the bottom of this article, and it's kind of them to note that she has died and that they offer their condolences. And so it's a nice balance between giving you the issues and saying, we're really focusing on Mila herself. Now, she may have just drowned in that pool, and, it may just be totally a coincidence. But tell me a little bit about some of the other doctors, what we're noticing about the other doctors. Is there any commonality here from what you understand, Alison?
Well, there's just a really high percentage of doctors and professionals that are being silenced. There's too many suspicious deaths. There's too many deaths that are like the timing on this. There's certain things that just make you think, wow, it's just it's too much of a coincidence. The fact that it's like the day before she's due to deliver the petition. For me, there's there's the event itself, but then there's the circumstances around the event. The fact that this woman, that she drowned, it's kind of suspicious. If she, you know, if she was killed under different circumstances, maybe I would think, okay, it was an accident. But there's just too many weird things about it. The timing, the fact that it's a drowning, because she could have, you know, it's an easy one to fake. There's all kinds of things. But anyways, I guess that's where my gut and my intuition comes in too. Mm-hmm. Like the minute I heard about it, and the fact that we didn't hear anything about it, the fact that it's been covered up, the fact that nobody's talking about it. If she was a single mom with kids that died in a swimming pool in Washington, D.C., you think they would not be advertising the heck out of that? And that some hockey team that died in a bus crash, they dragged it out for a week and a half. You know, this is a single mom with 3 kids or 2 kids or whatever. Sure, they would. The news would have eaten that up. But no, they're not saying a thing about it. Mm-hmm. Just imagine all the sympathy they could have gotten milked out of this story. This mom found dead in a swimming pool. If they could have sensationalized it in all kinds of directions, but no, they just shoved it under the carpet.
And again, I just want to make sure that we understand that she may or may not be single, because I got the idea when I saw that picture that might actually be a partner of hers that maybe is away in the military. I don't know. What I was noticing was, I don't want to go back to the page because it's my personal page, but if you guys want to go over there, you can follow the link here and do a little bit more sleuthing. But there was a person that she was next to who had the sunglasses on, who was older. You know, she's in her...
Well, if she's 45, she could have a kid who's 25.
she could. And the reason for them not being in the picture with the other 3, you know, it just seems weird, because she has this very young child, and then she's got a little bit older child, and then a teenager from that other picture. That's what I noticed.
That other picture might be an old picture too, though. The little one might be an old picture.
Well, okay, that's a possibility, and so that could be that this was the oldest fella here in the sunglasses, mm-hmm. and maybe this guy's a teenager now. Could be. So these are all
maybe she uses that picture because they don't look like that anymore.
Right.
She's protecting her kids' identities, but she's still using pictures of her kids. I think that picture could be 10 years old, 15 years old.
It could be. And so I think that Air Force connection is kind of interesting too, because if that is her son, then that could be why she lives so close to the Air Force Base, or there's all sorts of reasons. But that, I'm thinking that Facebook page is going to give a lot of information. And it also is a great way to get in touch with people if you want to do the dirty hands thing, where you're finding out more and just putting things together. What I'm noticing too is that you got someone like Andrew McCabe, I won't say the word, but you got him. People are raising $500,000 for him within a day of finding out that he didn't qualify for his pension. You don't see that happening here. Now, here's a person you would think that would need that kind of fundraising. So,
right. Apparently she worked for years to try and fight against this. Mm-hmm. So, and what does she get for her years of service? She's found dead in a swimming pool. Yeah, who's speaking up for her? Who's funding, raising money for her? Who's I don't know.
Well, even the fact that you don't see it in the news, and you've got Andrew McCabe, it's dominating all of the newscasts. Do they not have time to mention this? Do you see the discrepancy, folks, between, it's not just a little thing. We're talking about, even if this death was completely coincidental and had nothing to do with her activism, the fact that she died and nobody mentions it, they don't have a GoFundMe going, it's and then you've got this other person over here who's already got money in the Cayman Islands, and he's got the prestige, and he'll be fine. His wife's a doctor, and you've got these people whining and complaining. So I wonder if there's something going on in the background sometimes, that some people are more deserving of our attention than others, and some people get kind of pushed away because we don't really want to talk. Because can you imagine if the mainstream media took hold of this? Because they'd have to start talking about GMOs and mosquitos and
right. The story's been hushed up. They don't want anyone to know that these mosquitoes are bad news. If they mention this woman's death, they have to mention what she was doing in DC. They can't open up the can of worms.
Yeah. Now we're allowed to speculate, now that we've gone through the hard work. But it's a discipline, and it's really interesting when you start doing this kind of process, when you have the discipline of starting with what you don't know and those blank pages, and then you go to this more kind of, look at all that, Facebook stuff, and people it draws you in emotionally, which is okay once you've already got the information that you need, because you want to base things on real criteria. You want to be able to talk about the GMOs and the mosquito situation. It's not that you have to agree with it. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing.
What about the doctor from the CDC? That was barely covered. There wasn't a lot of information about that either. And he was working on several different things, including the Zika virus. Including, is this related? That guy was working on a story. Are these people just coincidentally dying? I don't know. It seems pretty random to me that two people within the space of a pretty short period of time, both of them were killed for exactly the same reasons, I think.
Well, I think we've probably covered this, and what I'm hoping to do, my call to action, I always have a call to action at the end of my shows anyway. What we would like to do with this show is to get people involved in the citizen journalism. This is not, as they say, crowdsourcing. That word has been so overused. This is called good old-fashioned journalism, learning how to cover the things. Basically, if the mainstream media is not going to cover this stuff, we need a group of people that are getting the skills to be able to do this. And, if YouTube shuts us down, then we go to another platform. It's not about the platform. It's about learning the skills and doing what we can to be able to get the information out there no matter what they shut down. Because this is serious, folks. These things are happening all the time, and we're not reporting them. And the best thing we can do is to bring them out, bring them into the light. And we're trying to give you the skills. And hopefully we can actually do the other doctor, Timothy, can't remember his last name, the guy whose picture was on the tree, telephone pole. That's according to CNN. What was his name?
35-year-old doctor at the CDC.
Cunningham. Timothy Cunningham, I think it was. So it would be great if we could learn all of these people's names, and even if each of us took on part of this, I think what we would find is that those puzzle pieces would start to come together. Maybe they live in proximity to one another, or they were working on the same projects. But wouldn't it be great to have a breakthrough and have this channel or another independent channel just break through where other people are unwilling to go? What do you think?
I think it's a great idea. I think that everybody deserves to have their story told and the truth be shown.
And we also need to know, if she thought it was important enough to know about this, I feel like we need to carry that on. We need to carry the torch to a certain extent, and whatever extent we can to get involved, because these things are going to keep happening as long as they can happen in the dark, or as long as people are no longer with us to be able to carry on the fight. So, any final words?
It's like a basic equation. Whenever you see somebody who's killed for trying to convey information, you've got to take a serious look at that information and realize that that's the information we need to spread. If it's important enough to kill over.
So, folks, I've got our logo up there on the screen, and please share, please like, please subscribe, go over to Alison's, to her Twitter. I think it's actually in the description. I did get that in there. It's at Noni Movie on Twitter. You can go over to characterdriven.com where we'll have some resources. We don't have all of the links in the description, but more and more I'm just trying to put things into a place where we can have a repository, and hopefully we'll have a couple of different places where people can go and continue to do the investigation. That's partly why I put Character Driven together, so we can have a community of people that are working together and carrying on in a virtual setting there with all the resources that they need. So make your way over there and become part of that community and tune in. We're going to keep doing this, aren't we?
Thanks very much for preparing. Oh, you did a fantastic job, and thanks very much for preparing all the material today. And I apologize both to Joani and to all the guests for not, being able to be there. My day just ran away, and unfortunately, I have to work for a living sometimes because this is because investigative journalism does not pay my bills.
Right.
But yeah, unfortunately, it's just. Sometimes I just got to actually work for money.
Well, and so, you don't need to apologize at all. We do have to work. I have to work. You have to work. And we're doing this because we actually care, and we want to see journalism coming back to a place where it has some honor, I suppose. I don't know what the word would be, but where you can actually believe some of the things that you're reading, and some of the ways that you can tell that the journalism has some integrity is that it has facts. It's not speculating. It's not working from a bias. It's doing what we did. That's how journalists work. They start from what they don't know, and then they work toward what they do know. They don't work with an assumption. Now, if we wanted to do what a lot of people do, we could just start with the article, or we could go to the Facebook page and we could get very emotional about it. And we wouldn't understand what we understand now after an hour and a half or whatever it's been. You can learn a lot.
Well, I think it's important to get to know the victim, because that tells you a lot about what happened to them.
Sure.
Know the victim.
Yeah, I guess we do a lot of personal interest stuff, and I think that's really important. But let's get the foundation. We find out what makes them special, the story behind the people that are making a difference in the world. That's my tagline and has been on my show for many years. And so I start with the idea that this is an average person who is doing above average things. And hopefully that'll inspire a lot of us. Yeah, it's dangerous. Sometimes it's dangerous. But does that mean that we're going to shirk? Does it mean that we're not going to be holding signs up on the street? Maybe some of us need to be carrying on that work. Maybe we need to have 20 people or 50 people standing in the same place where she was holding that one sign, just to say, you can't stop this. Okay. So I'm going to let you go, Alison, and have a well-deserved rest. And thanks so much for
everyone.
Sorry?
No, I was going to say, and thank you, everybody. And I hope that everybody does pitch in and help work together to bring these causes. Yeah.
Please pass this along and let people know about this. Put it on your social media. You can edit it down if you want to. It can be a little bit long, but hopefully there is something that was helpful, and we can actually this is a call to action. This isn't just a show that we want you to just sit and watch. Hopefully it will inspire you to do something, whatever it is that you feel called to do. We're on the earth for a very short time, and Mila had a shorter time than I did, that's for sure, and she did a lot, and we need to remember her for that. So I'm going to just continue praying for her boys. And I'm going to go take a look at her Facebook page now and really get to know her a little bit more. So good night, Alison. And good night, folks out there. And thank you to Little Sparrow for attending to the chat room, because I have no idea what's going on out there. So if there are people tuning in and chatting, thank you very much. And good night and stay safe.
Bye.